love anime, but it has its annoyances, and tropes are that thing. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm not saying they're all bad, but today we're talking about some of the worst, in fact, 10 of the worst anime tropes there are. And look, this is gonna be a doozy. Many Japanese people think very fondly of their time in high school because, look, the adult life is stressful and miserable for many of them. It's very hard to work in that kind of system. And it's no surprise to me as to why many mangaka writers do love to implement high school settings in their works. But it doesn't mean that it needs to happen every time. It's like putting a square peg into a round hole. Code Geass is by far the best example of this because I'm sure if he would have had more time in planning to save the world instead of having to work at the student council room all the time, it would have been time well spent. Look, there's nothing wrong with the high school setting by design. I just think you have to make it useful for the situation that you're presenting. Don't add it just for the sake of having high school. From the many isekais and harems that we see nowadays, creators must be naive to think that we really enjoy empty protagonists with no personalities. Or in fact, maybe they're right, and we do. And if that's the case, what does that say about us? Look, I refuse to believe that because anytime I see Kirito's or Natsu's face, I just want to punch it, and it's because they're such boring and forgettable characters. Humans, we all think, act in different ways, and there's not necessarily a rhyme or reason, but it matters to us and how we feel. And I think that's the thing that's really missing from these generic characters. Give them more personality, have more layers to them. People like Guts from Berserk and Thorfinn from Vinland Saga. They are such complex characters who have struggled in their life and they want to find themselves. These are people who have gone through things, and that's what makes characters relatable. And I think those are the things that we really look for when it comes to characters in anime that we watch. Look, it makes total sense that an anime with kids saving the world wouldn't happen with parents around because, look, nothing would get accomplished. They'd probably just get grounded or something. Look, it's already silly having an anime where kids are making the adult decisions. It's even more silly when there are no parents around and there's no justification for this either. You can at least give some decent excuse like their parents died, or have them just contribute to the fact that these kids need to save the world. Something like what My Hero Academia does. Or you can be real bold and have them run away and have to do everything completely by themselves, like Katara does. You know that feeling when you're watching an anime and a character you're heavily invested in ends up dying? It's a heartbreaking moment, but what about when that character comes back? It's like nothing ever happened. You'll probably feel conned or cheated. And you should be! I mean, what stakes are there anymore when a character comes back to life? And look, Dragon Ball Z is notorious for this. I mean, with every character that dies and comes back, that sense of heartbreak, that sense of hopelessness, that dilutes every single time because you know that character will probably just come back. So the impact from the death is just not going to hit the same. And look, it's hard to really take that series seriously. Look, if that's the vibe you're trying to create, then that's one thing. But something tells me when Toriyama did create these situations, that wasn't really his intent. He probably actually had death in mind, a more permanent one. But out of fear of not being able to see the series progress maybe the way he likes, or maybe Toei did not want that character to be gone because they wanted him to make more money for them. Who knows? Look, if you don't think you can create a good story after the character's death that's worth it, then why even kill them off in the first place? Save those moments for something truly, truly special. Using women as plot devices to make the male characters more greater is a trope that I despise so much. We see this in many different forms, like the damsels in distress who constantly need saving, or the women whose sole purpose in life is to find a mate. Even the tougher, more battle-tested women fail in these departments too, because even though they're as strong as can be, they're not strong enough to beat a big bad. Or they give up all that badassery to marry and have kids with a character who is far more weaker. While Miyazaki and Studio Ghibli have been holding down the fort when it comes to strong female characters, it's nice to see other anime also joining this bandwagon as well, and I really hope that this trend continues. Admiring a beautiful woman is one thing, and then there's this.
But I could be persuaded to change my mind. For instance, if you were to let me see your underwear.
Perverts have always been an unwanted trope in the anime industry since the days of Master Roshi. And look, he's not the only one from that franchise that does it either. And it's not rocket science to see why perverts are such a bad character for any anime. Look, they're not the only ones either. I mean, even the low-key ones are just as grimy. And you know the ones I'm talking about, the ones who conveniently trip into a woman's tatas. Like that totally happens in real life. When you think about it, it's kind of worse because it feels like you're really trying to make an excuse to be able to use this really ugly trope and make it more palatable. Look, there's no excuse for this trope. It's just gotta go. It's never been needed. I guess we could be thankful for the fact that it isn't a thing as much as it was. There's nothing wrong with girls who don't know how to express their love for someone, so they end up acting cold or distant or standoffish around them. It's a whole different animal to attack said person. This trope is just wrong, and what does this say about all the girls who feel like they have to express themselves in this kind of manner? This trope's just got to get the heck out of here. I love a good villain who does horrifying things. And wait, before you judge me, it's because I just can't wait for them to actually get their comeuppance from the hero. The problem is, heroes don't end up holding their end of the bargain. Why do they do this? The fact that heroes feel if they don't forgive them, that they are just like them, is an understandable answer, but it's still honestly a very egotistical and a selfish thought. When it comes to morality, it's not black and white. Villains do things for many reasons. Some are just really crazy and love the thrill of it. Others do things for reasons to help their family or help people that they care about. But why can't heroes think about it logically in that manner? I mean, not killing the villain spits in the face of all those victims who died and all the family members of those victims. Not to mention, it opens up the door for more people to die potentially. Think of all the lives they are potentially saving by taking care of these villains now. Ever since Nabokov popularized the Lolita in the 1950s, they have been very prevalent in anime, and I just don't understand it. I guess people just eat up the dainty young girls who love to dress up their age. However, I don't want to see this in my anime. It's creepy and totally unnecessary. Oh, and don't forget about that stupid little loophole when a girl looks like a child, but she's actually like thousands of years old. Look, this is an annoying trope, and there's no way you can spin it or justify this. Let's get rid of it. There's no more frustrating trope when someone's about to confess their love to someone else, and this happens.
It matters because I...
This is a very common trope that you see in a lot of forms of entertainment, not just anime, but for some reason, it feels like it hits even harder when you're watching this in an anime. As much as I find it annoying, I can't complain about the effectiveness of it. I mean, in fact, it's probably a great way to lull you into a false sense of security. only for it to be taken in an instant. And I guess you're just gonna have to wait until it happens again. And you'll probably just get bamboozled again if they do it. And, you know, yeah. In conclusion, these are some of the worst tropes you'll ever see in anime. And I wish we could do away with all of them. But unfortunately, there is an audience for them. But the greater question we should be asking is not about just the audience, but the creators who are willing to listen and why they want to continue adding these tropes in their anime. Thanks for watching. If you just can't get enough of me and want to show some love and support, please like this video, subscribe. It really does help. And let's get to that first stage, guys. 1,000 subscribers. Now, don't forget to have a great day, a great night, a great morning, wherever it is, wherever you are, and don't forget, Kokishin Amote Kudasai. Now it's time for me to make my own anime, and I'm gonna call it The Power of Friendship, because that's the only trope that we